Let's talk about. Let's start with the PlayStation Pro, man. What did you?
All right.
What were your thoughts on that?
You said cash grab pro. That's really what it is, man. It's just a cash grab. I mean, I said it right before we were recording. It's because you were saying somebody was saying this is the new way they're doing consoles, and I'm like, so they're DLCing consoles.
Yeah,
We're gonna get a little
exactly.
chunk of something
Yeah,
before the next console comes out. Okay, here's a little chunk, but we want to charge you $400 for this little chunk upgrade. I mean,
right.
I was
Now,
reading. I was reading. They're not even going to support 4K Blu-ray. I mean,
yeah,
what's the point of?
but
Oh, well,
this
we're kind of supporting 4K. It's a
right.
half 4K support.
Well,
It's a two and a half. It's a 2K support because we're not really supporting 4K.
yeah.
It's half a.
2K is 1080. 2K is 1080p.
Oh well, see there.
So
There you go. That's what they're
yeah,
supporting.
or it's round and about the 1080 area there.
Right.
If I remember reading correctly, it's a little bit more than 1080, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Since I pretty much agree with that, it's a cash grab. Like,
hmm
what the hell do you think Sony was thinking?
Um.
Aside from cash grab, aside from the obvious, I mean, what made them think that people like you and I, which are the hardcore of the hardcore, would go, yeah, you know what, I've got to have that. Even if I have a 4K TV, I've got to have this incremental upgrade for another $400.
I mean, my guess is they're thinking about all the people who have an Xbox One who thought that the PS4 just didn't do it. I mean, if you look at some of the specs, and I'm thinking more along the lines of like the hard drive,
Uh
where
huh.
you have you have the 1 terabyte hard drive, because most people who own a PS4 rip out that the cheap hard drive they put in, and they put in a 1 terabyte. Or if 1 terabyte is going to be the standard, they're going to put in a 2 terabyte, because like you've mentioned before, you mainly buy digital games now, and I haven't quite gotten on that boat yet, but I'm sure it's probably coming sooner than later. That more and more people are going to be doing that. More and more people are using Spotify and all the
Right.
music apps. They put a lot of stuff on these hard drives. So I think PlayStation in a way said, you know what, this hard drive isn't working, so we'll make some other changes to it, and we'll try to grab that percentage of people who haven't bought a PS4 yet, and entice them a little bit more.
Okay.
I think that's really what it is. I don't think they are trying to necessarily grab more, the people who already have a PS4. I really just don't think that's what they were thinking. I think they were thinking, hey, let's do an incremental upgrade, and we can try to grab some of those Xbox One people who haven't gotten both consoles yet.
Okay.
And I really think it's partially the same with Xbox. They're looking at it as, okay, well, we'll bring out the Slim, and we'll try to grab those people who haven't gotten an Xbox One yet with the smaller, lighter model, and then they can have both consoles in a smaller space, and
Right.
and that nature. I really don't think Sony was trying to be, you know, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, evil, malevolent, whatever you want to
No,
call it.
well, I mean,
I don't know.
they're a for-profit company, so that's their job.
Right,
Their fiduciary responsibility is to the shareholders.
right. No,
So
absolutely. And
that I understand. Business 101 is essentially either
mhm,
introduce new products to your audience or
right.
find a way to make your existing audience pay for the same shit they already have.
I don't think they're going for the same audience with this. I think that their audience is the people who don't necessarily have a PS4 yet, and I don't. The problem is I don't
But
think
but
that
but
audience is large. That
okay,
audience
but
is large.
wouldn't
Mhm.
that audience be the slim? Wouldn't they be buying the slim? I mean, if okay,
I mean,
because
yes.
people that don't own a PlayStation 4
hmm
are either are basically at this point in time, because it's mid-life cycle or generation
Right.
cycle,
hmm
are either Xbox like fanboys, Nintendo fanboys,
Right.
people that are loyal to just a specific brand name,
Sure.
or people that are casual gamers, like the Wii or the Wii U audience,
hmm
which basically doesn't exist because they're all on smartphones. I've said that
Right.
many times before.
Sure.
Um, but Sony themselves said it at the conference and countless times afterwards. Well,
hmm
this is really for the PC gamer that wants next gen now, They want 4K,
What?
but
No,
yeah,
PC
that's
PC
what they said.
gamers have had 4K for like years.
Right, and but that's the thing. This was supposed to. I think the guy's name is Andrew House. He said, and it may not have been him. I may be wrong. So anybody that's listening, don't go nuts on us, um, or at least on me. But Andrew House said, and a couple other people from Sony have said, this is to basically for the elite of the elite of the elite of the hardcore that want the latest and greatest. But that's you and I. And
Right.
if you and I had the disposable income, we both own 200-inch 8K TVs, the custom made, and
And I'd have a PC running next to my PS4 and be streaming off of that, not
exactly, exactly. But my point is, I don't, I feel like they're chasing a ghost. So it's something. It's not their, the audience they're after with the PS4 Pro doesn't really exist, because if it's true that they want that audience, that niche of a niche, then
right.
then somebody at Sony has their head up their ass, because those people
Possible.
aren't gonna buy, like you said, they're not gonna buy a console, because they're already
Right.
they were doing 4K gaming years ago. They're not they don't have
Yeah.
to pay to play online. Um,
Nope.
they're doing real 4K with with heavy hitting
Real.
graphics cards and
Right.
processors and
Sure.
i7s and 24 gigs of RAM and shit like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I mean, the PS4 Pro, it's the same thing under the hood, with slightly improved bus speeds. It's not new tech,
Yeah.
and they even said it themselves. They're not. It's not true 4K. I don't even think it's going to hit 2160p, which is what 4K resolution is. And don't get me wrong, I love HDR. I've seen it. I have it, and it's awesome. But
Mhm.
how well is that going to be supported with that? The soft hardware that they're running.
That-
For a console, it's great. For whatever it is, even though it's a disappointing console, it's great. But I mean, in my opinion, the PS4 should have hit the ground running back in 2013 with like 16 gigs of RAM minimum, and much faster processor. The RAM being the key.
Right. Well, I mean,
I don't
they've
know.
got a.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, they're trying to compete with a PC, and that isn't something that they should even be trying to do.
But that's like me going out right now at 43 years old, my fat ass running around the block twice a day. Say, oh, I'm gonna compete with Usain Bolt. No, I'm way too old. I'm way too out of shape, and I haven't trained for that all my life. That's the same
Right.
thing Sony's doing. And I don't know if you saw the end of my blog, the post that I put up. This is the 32X all over again, dude. It's like 1996, all over again. They had you and I had I think I had it, and
Yeah.
it was the Sega Genesis, the Sega CD, and then the 32X came out.
Yep.
This is and it's funny. I put the commercial on the blog too. I pulled it from YouTube. The dude is talking. They flash all the graphics, the hyperbole, and the hubris up there. Pop, pop, pop. Most powerful console ever. Play games in higher resolution. The same shit that the same shit that's falling out of Sony's mouth this time around, and it's being marketed the same way. And if you think about it, I mean, there's obvious differences, because they're they're 2 decades apart, but the PS4 Pro is the 32X, and the 32X didn't stop the Saturn from coming. It actually came out 6 months after the 32X. So people paid the price of a brand new console to stick that plastic piece of crap in their 7-year-old Genesis, and it really didn't do much. And then the Saturn was out. The Saturn was out 6 months later in Japan, and I think a little under a year later here in America. And it was like, at the time, you and I were very young, so
Right.
23, and you were 19 or 20, so
Yeah.
something like that. So it was
Right.
like,
Something like that. Yeah.
we didn't look at it the same way we do now. But I don't know. Do you see
Right.
those parallels that I see between those two things? They're
Sure,
really
absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
aside from obviously the 32X is ancient tech, but it's the same thing.
Right.
And instead of it, and then the only other difference I can see is the 32X is an add-on,
Right.
while the
And
PS4 Pro is an entirely new console.
it
Not
could be an add-on.
Yeah, it is in spirit. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just
Right.
and the 32X wasn't even a real 32X machine. It was a second 16-bit graphics processor that connected to your Genesis, and it didn't deliver 32-bit anything. It did a little bit for audio, and it cleared up some of the the pixelation, but
Yeah.
it didn't do it. Really, it was insignificant, and that's kind of what I wanted to hit on with it in this podcast. Was for me I'm pointing at my PS4 like it's a Pro, but I wouldn't buy it even if I had the money for it.
Right.
But it's too similar to the 32X for me, and I know a lot of the younger gamers that might be listening or might listen one day might not remember that.
They don't know what that is.
Yeah, and there's been consoles that have come and go and bombed, and that people we've made fun of or have gotten obliterated
Jaguar.
online.
Jaguar.
Yeah.
Jaguar.
But you know what? At least no, dude. You're right. 3DO. Wait. CDI. 3DO. Jaguar. What was that piece of shit Nintendo had? Virtual Game Boy or what? The thing that was all red.
Virtual Boy.
Yeah,
Virtual Boy.
So bad I can't even remember the name of it.
TurboGrafx 16. No, just kidding. TurboGrafx 16 wasn't that bad.
Wii U. No, but no, and the other thing that really kind of bothers me with the PS4 Pro is Colin said it with from PS I Love You, the guy that did Kind of Funny Games, Colin Moriarty. I can never say his last name right. Sorry. He said he's not against. He's like us. He's not against. Obviously not against better tech, more powerful tech, but this incremental upgrade. They're not. What was it? And I'm paraphrasing. He basically said this isn't addressing the problem that we've had with games the last 20 years or so, where the consoles get better, the power gets better, but the games themselves are essentially the same. We're still getting 40-hour RPGs. We're still getting standard side-scrolling platformers. We're still getting the 3D. Everything. The length of the games hasn't changed. The immersion hasn't changed. It hasn't. You know what I mean? We haven't. That hasn't evolved alongside the hardware, and it used to not be like that, or it wasn't in the beginning. But now, and that's that's why I retweeted him like crazy, because he was like, I mean, that was like touchdown after touchdown. He was scoring, just like every tweet during the conference was awesome. But and then the other thing for me is the PS5. We all know it's there somewhere. It's.
I don't think it is. I think it's.
No,
I think
it
it's on
is.
a
It
drawing
is.
board. It's
No.
on a drawing board. Right?
No. Wait.
Xbox Xbox One is. I mean the Scorpio or whatever. And now, granted, we don't know what that is yet, but.
See now, but
I
if the Scorpio turns out to be the Xbox 4 or
whatever.
2 or whatever they're gonna call it,
Whatever they're gonna call it,
the next generation Xbox that will compete with the PS5, if it turns out to be that, and Sony doesn't have the PS5 ready to roll, in at least no less than a year after that, Sony's in a world of hurt, dude. They're in a world of hurt. And like,
I don't know if they do, man. I mean, they've got this Pro thing, and I mean, I don't see why they'd bother with it, other than the fact that they need the money, or something,
Now,
or they're trying something out. I mean, I don't know.
See,
You know,
that's the thing.
they're trying out. They
But-
want to see.
And
They want to see how this works, but
And I don't disagree with that, but there was the other thing I wanted to mention that Colin had said. He also had mentioned that this really kind of dilutes the console market. You have a PS4, the original model that will eventually sell out and be gone, but you have that. You have the PS4 Slim, then you'll have the PS4 Pro, then you'll have the PSVR unit, and all of these things are
that
expensive.
just came out too, didn't it?
Yeah, and that'll be another podcast for another time. But I mean, the customer, and I'm sure most kids are going to go in and go, and parents that that their kids
Don't
are
know any
gamers.
better.
But yeah, the parents that aren't like you and I, where they're older gamers and they're not savvy or they're not informed. They're gonna, well, the PS4 Pro. Why would I buy anything but the Pro? You know what I mean? Or, but because it's $100 difference, some people are going to go in and go, well, I'm not really a hardcore gamer like this person is or that person is. I just want to play Bejeweled from time to time, so I'm only going to pay the $300 is a lot more attractive than 400.
Right.
So, and
Play it on
that
your phone.
yeah, and if that's the thing, they say the PS4 Pro is for this elitist market, which I don't think exists because, and I'll tell you, this is why I just think it's a bunch of bullshit, because the people that the people, like I said earlier, the people that they want are marketing the PS4 Pro to don't want a console. They're doing everything on PC, and it blows all
Right.
three consoles put together. Blows them all away. Power
Right.
wise
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
performance wise, 60 frames a second solid. You know what I mean? Full 2160p and no online fees. So you have that, but this audience that they think, like I said, the $300 versus the $400, the $300 crowd is going to go, well, is going to be these guys carrying their phones around and, you know what I mean, playing whatever, Super Mario Run and Pokemon Go.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with those games, but that's not the audience that they should have been going after. I feel like this is the Sony of old, like the
Okay.
PS3 Sony, or just before pre PS3 Sony, where they had
Okay.
this just they were completely arrogant and just, hey, we're gonna charge $600 for this.
Oh
You're
yeah.
gonna get a Blu-ray player. It doesn't matter if it's gonna be successful or not. You're just gonna take everything we give it and you're gonna like it. And then Microsoft came and handed their ass to them,
Right.
on a silver platter. I feel like they kind of redeemed themselves, at least in the public eye, with the PS4 launch, and they've done well with it thus far, despite not having much to play on it. And then they come out with this, and I just feel like it just jumbles the entire thing up. It's no longer two consoles. You have, and even with
It's
Microsoft,
3.
yeah, and no, it's actually six or it's five. It's about to be six. This time next year, we'll be looking at the Scorpio's release, but you have
Oh yeah. If you
you
count
have
Xbox.
and
Yeah. Sorry.
forget Nintendo. Nintendo is just you know uh,
Who?
exactly what
What
um
company is that?
yeah yeah
Didn't they make Metroid a long time ago? I just...
yes, they need to make that for the PlayStation, but we'll have the this time next year we'll have the PS4 Slim,
Mhm.
PS4 Pro if it's
Mhm.
still around, if it doesn't bomb, which I think it might. We'll have the Xbox One. I'm sure they'll phase that out, but they have the Xbox One Slim. They'll have the Xbox Scorpio, whatever that is, and then
Right.
whatever, and then the VR units and all that other crap. And now
Mhm.
it's just what a mess, dude. You know, I don't know. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that? I mean, see, it's tough.
I mean,
It's tough because
mhm.
you and I are have been gaming for like almost 40 years, so we're not only passionate but we're
Yeah.
informed and we're savvy consumers too. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different. But
Eh,
I mean, what do you think of the average hardcore gamer, not like guys like us that are like the
mhm.
hardcore of the hardcore? What do you think
Mhm.
and the kids that rely on their parents to buy this stuff? I mean, what if your kid came to you right now and said, hey Dad, I want the PS4, what are you gonna do? You know?
I mean, if they didn't have a PS4, I would probably be like, okay, well, I'll take a look for Christmas, and then I might, considering on if I knew about it, you know what I mean? If I knew that, well, it's $299 for a little bit downgraded version, but if I knew at least for myself that I'd be like, well, I'm gonna spend an extra $100 and put a 1 terabyte hard drive in it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I might do it simply because of that, but only because I didn't own a PS4 yet. If I, I already own a PS4. I already have a 1 terabyte hard drive in it. I'm not sinking any more money hardware wise into that.
Right.
The only thing I'm going to do is wait for Xbox and Sony to go head to head again with the consoles and see which one comes out on top. And then, hey, look, there's my console for this generation. You know what I mean? And that's the way I've done it this last couple times. The only difference that I did was when I switched from, the 360 to the PS3, because I wanted to play a specific game, and we went over that the last podcast, so I'm not gonna,
Right,
bore
right.
people with that story again. But as far as if I was someone new to PS4, then I might be tempted with the Pro simply because I don't know any better, and I could see myself wanting to put the extra terabyte hard drive in. And yeah, those are like right now what, 80 to $100, so I
If
could see
that,
it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah,
if that, I could see it. If I didn't know any better, I'd go like, well, 4K. You know what I mean? But
right,
those are the people who don't know that it's not really 4K, or who don't do the research, who are just going to go based on the marketing. And Sony will, as soon as the Christmas season hits, I'm sure Sony's going to be throwing it out there. You're not even going to see anything on the Slim. You're going to see everything
yeah,
about the PS4 Pro. And if I was a smart marketer, I would be at Sony going, okay, how can we tie the VR in for Christmas with the PS4 Pro and make it a bundle pack that's only available through there? And boom, you got, like, I mean, and the VR headset's another $400. Don't even get me started on that, because
Jesus,
that's that's
that
another
that
at
thing,
least two generations. No, that's two generations before I even picked that up. So we're not even gonna go there.
at least,
Yeah, I'm not buying a buggy system off the bat. I told my wife. My wife's like,
yeah,
"You're not going to want that, right?" And I'm like, "Well, I'd wait at least two generations until they work all the bugs out and drop the price to like $200, because they got all the tech and research paid for."
right. I think, and honestly, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about picking it up because I don't think it's gonna last. I think it's the Virtual Boy. I think it's the PlayStation Move and the Kinect and the Wiimote all
Maybe,
over again, dude. All
maybe.
over again.
We won't get into that now, though.
Okay. Okay.
We'll
Well, let's.
stick to, that's all I see right now. Is I'm gonna stick with my comment. It's a cash grab. It's a DLC for consoles, and I think that's the best way to put it. It's a DLC for
Right.
consoles. They're trying to, and again,
Well, no, but
they're trying to grab that those people who don't have a PS4 yet, and might be enticed by, well, it has a 1 terabyte hard drive now, and it can maybe do 4K graphics. But then you've got all these people who already have an Xbox One, who are probably looking at the Scorpio there. So
right.
I mean, a lot of people are going to wait,
Right.
until the Scorpio. At least the people in the know, they're going to wait until Scorpio drops, and then they'll make a decision.
Right.
And
Okay.
I'm not even sure when that is. So,
Okay. Well, it kind
but
of.
yeah.
I think
Hmm.
it's been met with such a tepid response and a lot of backlash, not only because
Hmm.
the product is pretty crappy, or subpar,
Right.
or completely completely unnecessary. No matter what kind of gamer you are, the PS4
Right.
is just a big waste of time. Um,
Sure.
all that R&D could have went into the PS5 or stayed with the PS5 or whatever that is that will hit
Right.
us. But I don't know how much you saw of the presentation or if you went back and
Mm.
watched any of it. Jesus Christ, dude!
Uh,
I've had more fun at funerals. Like
Oh yeah, no,
they
I
they
didn't.
they could have.
I heard it was a
No,
snore fest.
it
So
wasn't even a snore fest, dude. It was like Depression Fest 16. Like they came out and it was so solemn and so
uh
dour. It was
uh
just you literally would have thought they were announcing like Sony was gonna say, hey, we're no longer making PlayStation. So enjoy what you have. That's it. That's it. Like that's not hyperbole. That's how it made me feel. Like, and I wasn't the only one because I was on Twitter. I was on Twitter for the whole event and watching
right.
everyone else's reactions, and it was pretty much the same. And it was,
Wow.
I felt like they flew all these uh, people in, from other states
Mhm.
and other countries to New York or wherever they held it at to unveil this piece
Right.
of crap. And
This
in
is.
reality, if their marketing team was worth anything, at least in this
Uh huh.
with this one thing, they would have just
Uh huh.
they could have just put the information out on IGN. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
to a internet news source. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
They
I
could
think
have. They could have just put it on Reddit, and it'd have been
yeah.
all over the internet within 30 minutes.
Yeah, could you know what? And Twitter, the most powerful news source in the world. Hey, PlayStation gamers, we're releasing a new version, blah blah blah. And if they would have given those, even though we all know they're crappy specs, people would have been.
Hmm.
I think people would have been eating that stuff up. Oh my
Maybe.
god, a new PlayStation 4. Oh my god. But like now it's oh my god, a new PlayStation 4. You know, like
Yeah.
and I know a lot of and Colin said that too. This would have been the perfect opportunity to unveil the PS5 if we're going back to
Hmm.
traditional console life cycles where it's every 5 or 6 years you get a new one.
Sure.
They usually announce it either at the end of the third or the fourth year of the
Uh-huh.
current cycle. They
Uh-huh.
unveil it. They have the unveiling, and then the next year at E3 is the big reveal, where they give you the real
Okay.
name of the console, some launch titles,
Right.
price, and a definitive release date. And then it comes out later that year. But like him and a couple other people and myself were on Twitter, and we all kind of
Hmm.
had the same sentiments. It was PS5. The conference should have been PS5. We'll see at E3 next July. Here's a sizzle reel. I mean, this conference, dude.
Hmm.
Not one sizzle reel. Not
Hmm.
they didn't do side by side comparisons, and I've watched it on my 4K up here.
Hmm.
It's it's like I said, like I said, even if they didn't call it the PS5, if they said it's the PS4 Pro, you've got 20 gigs of RAM, you've got
Hmm.
now you have 16 cores in your processor,
Right.
and you have HDR and true 4K at 60 frames a second, regardless of the genre of game. Then I would
Sure.
be like, well, okay, well, I'd rather have a PS5, but that would be okay. I would be interested in something like that.
Sure.
I don't get it, and it hasn't been received well. So, I
Well,
mean,
well,
yeah,
what's there to receive well?
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, nobody saw this coming, as Sony. I mean, you and I. I mean, I
What do
guess
you
I
mean
could.
they didn't? What do you mean they didn't see
I
this
mean,
coming
I
in,
mean,
Tony?
what dumbass sat down at a board
Hmm.
meeting or in any of those management meetings and said, "Hey, let's
Hmm.
release the same console, add the word Pro to it, use the same parts, overclock them slightly, put
Hmm.
a bigger cooler in it, and charge an extra $100 for it." I mean, they now I will agree because I'm in marketing that most people are stupid. The average consumer is uninformed and
Sure.
compulsive, and
Hmm.
both. So I get that from that perspective. I understand, but like I
Right.
just don't understand how anyone at Sony thought this was a good idea, or and even Microsoft to that extent. I mean, if the Scorpio turns out to be the if it turns out to be the
Hmm.
next real Xbox, next generation Xbox, I don't think it'll come out next year. It'll be the reveal, and then it'll come out in 18.
Right.
But
So Sony will have a little bit of time to get their shit together, but
I know. Going back to what we were discussing earlier, I know the PS5 is further than the drawing board because they go to work on it the day after the PS4 launch. They all do that, and
right.
they've already got the PS6 and 7, on on paper somewhere too, but I don't know. It just
Yeah.
now we have to suffer with, and this is the thing for as a consumer, as a gamer,
Hmm.
which is the most important thing to me because I don't give a shit about the business side of gaming. It's interesting to talk about, and
Right.
we can throw conjecture back and forth all night long.
Sure.
But the thing for me is it pushes the real upgrade. At least I would say minimum for release at least 3 years out. So if there was going to be a PS5 in 18 or 19, now
Uh-huh.
it's 21 or 22, and that sucks.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
I mean, I don't know. You're talking PS5 and Xbox, and it just made me think, well, what if I just made a console that had oh crap, I can't even think what it's called now because I have it in this computer and now I can't think of what it's called, the solid state, you know what I mean? Just
oh
throw a
okay,
one
yeah, yeah, yeah.
terabyte solid state drive in there, and that's it. I mean, you watch your processing power just skyrocket
Well, of
because it can,
course.
instantly access the memory. Well, yeah, yeah, I know,
Well,
but I'm just thinking, that
right.
maybe that's the direction that this all needs to go, which it's not for a very long time, I'm
Right.
sure, because
Well, I feel
they're
well
they're not gonna.
to close this section of the podcast out.
Mm,
I'll say this, and you can have the last word if you want. But we've been at this
No,
for
that's cool.
we've been in this topic for 30 minutes, so I want to move on. Um,
Right.
I feel like we're at a point now where
Hmm.
the PS4 Pro is basically an admission that, hey, yeah, consoles are underpowered and it's no compared to PCs, and it's no longer as popular or as acceptable as it used to be because
Okay.
PCs are so cheap now.
Sure.
Comparatively speaking, of course. Um, but I feel like that's an admission, and I feel going forward, like underpowered consoles are, and I may be
Are
wrong, are on their way out. I feel like the next generation, especially if the PS4 Pro and the Scorpio, if it turns out to be just another incremental upgrade, if those
hmm
bomb, I mean that pretty much sends a clear message to all those companies that, hey, you're this isn't going to be tolerated anymore. We want what we want. We want
right.
you've got they I mean even with this generation they went from the the proprietary processors and chips and cards and
hmm
stuff over to
Right.
x86. They went back to PC architecture, which is great for developers and better for consumers too. So I feel like
Okay.
I feel like it's just kind of everything's kind of going that route. That's my microphone. It's rolling. Hang on. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, if they don't do something radically different, and I don't mean all of this, touchy feely. Here's some, new apps to watch your videos and this and that, but I mean actually adds some actual power to the consoles, meaning they take a look at PCs and see where they are, and okay, we got 8 gigs of RAM in there. All right. Well, can we push that to 16? I mean, most PCs are 16 gigs of RAM now standard. So are we going to reach the standard? You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
and I'm not asking my console to necessarily run Windows 10, but 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 Microsoft has been saying, hey, you know, we want to not necessarily end console generations, but they're looking at it as,
The
you know,
integration
right, yeah, the integration thing,
with
the
PC.
know where yeah, and I see it, that's what they're doing. You're gonna see, you know, I'm just gonna call it the Xbox Two, but the Xbox Two now with Windows 10. You know what I mean? Or some variation of
Right.
Windows 10,
Right. Right.
and that's going to be their thing. They're gonna do that, and I know Sony opened the door with the cross-platform, gaming, and then Microsoft responded and said, okay,
Right.
let's talk about it. They weren't adverse to the idea, which tells me right now that they're already thinking possibly PC Microsoft coming together.
Yeah. No, and I
You know what
think
I mean?
uh, right.
On their stuff there. So I mean, it could be a thing. I mean, it could be something where Microsoft's trying to find a way to, weasel themselves into a position where there's only one console. You know what
Right.
I mean?
That's possible. I think
Hmm.
not the next generation with the Xbox Two and
Yeah.
PS5 and whatnot. I think it's for the generation uh, that comes after that.
Okay.
I think that will be there. I don't think the traditional hardware will be there in 15 or 20 years. I think it'll be kind of like we have PlayStation now and the
Right.
integration between with Xbox and PC. I mean, if you can get your games on PC and most PCs are better than consoles, you know, why would you buy a console? And if
Right.
why would you buy a console if your internet connection is decent and you can stream? But
Hmm.
we'll end it here because we do have to move on.
Right.
Um, if once you there are this whole streaming games things like PS Now and stuff, nice idea on paper, but now with 4K coming and 8K coming in another 10 years or so,
Hmm.
our internet's like just right now you need 30 to 35 megabits per second to download 4K video or stream it. I can't
Nobody's
do
getting that.
I can't do that here. I used to be able to do it when I had Time Warner when I was getting 300 over 30, or when I had FiOS and was doing over 100 over 100. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't
But
have that fun stuff here.
yeah, most neighborhoods don't have that, and most people can't afford that, even when they offer it. But like, how are they going to go backwards? And if they release, if they say, hey, no more consoles, now you can just fire up your app and stream your games. Well, what are you going to be streaming in 720 because you're or less because your connection sucks? But you just went out and bought a $5,000 4K or 8K TV. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it almost feels like a paradox. I feel like that technology is here or coming, and so is the gaming technology or the streaming or like no hardware, but the internet's really gonna kind of piss on that idea.
Yeah, well, it's just because there's so many people. There's so many people pulling on that bandwidth. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just
Right.
they'd have to up the bandwidth to where
Yeah.
to some obscene
Well, no.
speed.
If we could all get Google Fiber, we'd all have a gigabit down and up, dude. Problem solved for the next 20 years.
Yeah,
But
well, they'd have to put fiber optic cable everywhere, and they haven't done that yet.
that's dude. I like my stuff instant, man. I don't like to watch stuff load, but and I don't like lag in my games. But let's move on.
Yes.
Let's see. We need to go into our Final Fantasy discussion. This
Yes.
is. I'll try not. I can't promise anything. I'll try not to get pissed off, and
Uh,
I'll try not to rant. Um,
okay.
we'll start with what was for you. What was the
Uh,
last great Final Fantasy title? When
I gave this.
or
Uh-huh.
when was the last time Final Fantasy was actually great?
I I mean, I would say great would probably be 10,
Okay.
Final Fantasy X. I really liked 11. I just the only problem that I had with it was pay not pay to win, but it was monthly subscription,
Right.
which kind of just I just don't have the money. Well, I do have the money, but I
It's
don't
not
want to have
worth
to
it.
pay for it. Well, I don't want to have to pay for it because then I feel like it's going to a job or I've got to play it. Otherwise, I'm
Right.
not getting my
Right.
money's worth.
Right.
So so
And you
and we've
ignore all your other
right.
games. Yeah.
Right, and we've gotten to that, and I don't want to focus on that. I would say the last really good one that I enjoyed playing, and I would say I played more than probably I played once and a half maybe was Final Fantasy X.
Okay.
We did 10 with the spheres and Titus and all that fun stuff. I played X.
Wait. Titus.
Huh? Titus,
Titus.
sorry. Titus.
I'm just
Did
giving
I
you a
say
hard time.
I said
Yeah.
Titus, didn't I?
Yeah. Everybody does. It's Titus.
Anyways, so played that. Played X2, which was an interesting twist on that. But yeah, I know, and I said interesting twist. But
You mean
10, I'd say
shit.
was the 10 was the last one that I played heavy. I played 11 for a little while, but I didn't get very far because I didn't have anybody that I knew on that. And again, PS3 with no voice chat made it extremely difficult to have to
Right.
try to keyboard while you were playing that game.
Okay.
Now, granted, the whole thing with 14, if it wasn't $15 a month, oh wow, I just looked really gay when I did that. If it wasn't if it wasn't
Hey,
$15 a month, then
that's inappropriate. I'm offended. We have to put a trigger warning on the podcast, dude.
yeah, I know. We'll edit it out. If 15 wasn't $15 a month, if Final Fantasy decided that they'd let go of their subscription model and say, hey, we'll go ahead and go free to play on this since it's been out for a while and do it on the PS4 as an experiment, I could see myself at least paying for the game and then saying, okay, I'll pay for the game and then I can play it at my leisure.
Right.
But with that whole thing, yeah, the last great one was their free to play, which was 10, and I would say yeah, that's the last great one.
Okay. I would say for me, the last time
Mhm,
Final Fantasy was great, or I was a
mhm,
fan, you
mhm.
know, would be 9.
Okay, yeah, I can see
And
that. I figured you'd say 9.
I love 10. 10 is a
Mhm,
fantastic game. It's a
mhm,
very good game, but it's
mhm,
not great. And the only reason I disagree with you on that is because uh, that was the starting point of that linearity, where it, I mean, 10's a lot of fun, and you can go back way later, and in the end part of the game and
Sure.
explore. But basically, it's a corridor. You're shoved down a corridor,
Right.
with each task you complete. Whereas other
Yeah.
game, now granted, in games like 7 and 8, in the beginning,
Hmm.
and even 9, you're confined to a local area, and but
Sure.
then
Well,
eventually,
they're setting up the story.
right, you're right in the introduction to the epilogue or the
Hmm.
prologue, but you get the you eventually get to the world map and you're free. You can pretty much go wherever you go, and they have the artificial barriers up, in the form of monsters that will just kill you,
Right.
one hit
The
you and
form
stuff.
of.
Yeah, or something's locked or something like that. But
Or
generally, it
you hit
almost
an ocean.
right. It becomes yeah. It becomes almost like a sandbox type of environment where you can pretty much go anywhere you want, and even
Hmm.
if you can't, you usually
Hmm.
have a very large area to explore and do things in, and discover things in. With 10,
Sure.
it's like each chapter in 10 is
Hmm.
its own its own what's the word I'm looking for? It's just its own
Its
little,
own area.
yeah, like mini game. That's the best way I can describe it. It's you have one goal in each area of
Hmm.
10. When you complete it,
Right.
you move on to the next area. Whereas in games prior, or Final Fantasy games that
Hmm.
preceded that, it was,
Hmm.
well, finish the intro to the game and then go wherever you want, do whatever you want.
Well,
You know.
I think part of it is you got to kind of and I don't you kind of got to look at what the story of 10 is.
Mhm.
And I'll relate back to 7 only because everyone will be able to relate to that one who's at least listening to this. But in 7, you kind of okay, yeah, you got out of Midgard, and you're really not kind of sure what you're doing or where you're going. So yeah, you wander, you can go wherever you want. And 10 though, you knew where you needed to get to. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
She was on a quest to grab the spirits and then to bring the grand piece or whatever they called it in the game. You
The
know what I mean? Yeah, I know, really. It's been a while, okay, man. I don't remember what the hell it's
really
called.
the final
the
Aeon
Yeah, the well, no, not the yeah, to defeat sin
defeats sin,
and
right?
yeah, defeat sin and bring the great calm. That's what it
Yep.
was. And along the way, she was gonna get married, and a few other things happened that kind of sidetracked that story and all of that. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling the
No,
game for anybody who hasn't
well,
played it,
no,
but
no, you don't have to give spoiler warnings for a
yeah,
17-year-old game.
but but excuse me. But I think in that respect it was a very straightforward line. She was in a hurry to get to there to bring about the calm and to do that. So I think in that regard, I don't think there was a lot of room for them to say, okay, yeah, let's wander off over here. You know what I mean? And yeah, when they got to the Great Plain area where the map kind of opens up for that one area where you could do
The
the
calm lands,
trials and right,
right?
and they were making the trek across to get to what was the capital?
Oh, Xanarkand.
Yeah, no, not Xanarkand, but
They go
they
through.
had to hit one other capital first before they
The
got
calm
there.
lands, to the cavern of the Stolen Faith, where you get Yojimbo. Then when you exit
Hmm.
there, you go to Mount Gagazet, where the Ronso live. And then after
Holy
Mount
crap!
Gagazet, there's a giant dragon boss. You kill him, and
Hmm.
then you're at Xanarkand. And then you face the
Wow,
last trial.
you remember that a lot better than I do.
Well, I love the game, dude. It's a
Right.
huge game for me. But
It's gonna be a huge game.
then I got Final
But that's
Fantasy 13. I got hosed. But
but that's what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about the fact that the idea of Final Fantasy X was, okay, I'm starting here. I need to get to here. What's the most direct route? We need to get there in a hurry
right.
because the world may end otherwise.
See,
And I
but
think when
it's
you look at
always
it that way, it's kind of like, okay, there's no real time to go wander off in this side village with a
But
chocobo
but
and go racing and raising chocobo on a golden saucer.
but was there really time to do that in Final Fantasy VII? There was a giant meteor in the sky. It had already been summoned. See,
You
nah,
know,
you're arguing,
I mean,
dude.
I'm
Burned,
not arguing that.
burned.
No, I'm not. I don't really think so because the meteor part there, they don't really know about until it's coming. And most of the time, at least for me, when I knew the meteor was there, I felt a sense of urgency that I needed to go and face Sephiroth, even though I was probably 15 levels too early. And I went in there and had my ass handed
Bum,
to me and
bum,
had to
bum.
retreat
Oh yeah,
and
I
go
remember
back and
that.
level up another, you know what
Yes.
I mean? Because I was, but I think a lot of people would probably do that, make that mistake and
See,
not realize, oh yeah, maybe I should go level up another, you know,
right.
I should go grab that summon that, what is it, Knights of the Round or whatever the hell it was, and beat him
Yeah,
in one hit.
the game breaking summons.
The
But
dame breaking summon.
that's pretty much what it is. But like
Yeah.
I won't disagree that 10 is an awesome game, but
Uh-huh.
for me it marks that point, and I play it often, at least once a year, but
Hmm.
it marks the point where Square Enix took over,
Sure.
they became Square Enix instead of SquareSoft and Enix, after the
Right.
merger, and these new people, some of the same people that are working on Final Fantasy now had their
Hmm.
hands in 10, and
Sure.
that was the last game that I always forget that you have to forgive me, the composer, the original Final Fantasy composer worked on.
Uh, yeah. No.
Nobu something. So I can't pronounce his name even if
Uh,
I could remember it. But
yeah, you got me.
but that was his last one, and he co-composed it with somebody else, and it's got a great soundtrack. It's fantastic,
Right.
and it's sad, but it still sounds like Final Fantasy, but it has a lot of the hallmarks that
Hmm.
the I kind of think of it as a gateway game.
Okay.
It's the hybrid of it's the missing link, if you will, of Final
Between what it is,
Fantasy. Yeah,
between what it
between
is
what it was
now
and
and
what it is, what it would become, or what it has become.
right,
Kind of
what
like
has become.
kind of
Yeah.
like kind of like Archaeopteryx,
Okay.
the dinosaur bird. Um, it had traits of both, but it just and I like I said, I love the game, so I'm not berating it, but it has the linearity of it
Hmm.
drives me nuts. And uh, that's the only thing that really bothered me with that game, was it just you just push down this path, whereas okay, I want to play, okay, I'll play the intro, and then the whole game just opens up, and it's just like, oh man, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
As an RPG fan, and I know you like RPGs,
Sure.
that's one of the most satisfying feelings. It's whoa, man, like, oh God, when I play Dragon Quest, I do the intro, and then there's 400 or 500 hours of game time exploring this gigantic universe. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So, you know, it's that. But yeah, the last time it was great. We got really sidetracked there.
Hmm.
Was for me was 9. I understand why you would say 10. A lot of people say 10.
Hmm.
Um, had Final Fantasy not become what it is, I might even say 10. But because it took everything bad about Final Fantasy 10, or the
Uh-huh.
saga did, and that's what it has become. With everything that was good, has pretty. I mean, it says.
Okay.
What, you can't really argue with me on that. I know some people will, but they're idiots. It says Final Fantasy on the box or on the download art, but that's it.
Hmm.
And then maybe you get a Marbleau encounter or a Behemoth encounter. You know what I mean? And that's it. They make those those cutesy references to other characters and other games in the series, but
Right.
they're not canon. You know what I mean? They're just for fun.
Sure.
So, nine was just, and nine. I don't think nine's the best Final Fantasy game. That's another
No.
question. But
Yeah.
nine was the last time the series was really all about what Final Fantasy started out as
Hmm.
originally and maintained for 15 years. You
Sure.
know, and 10 was really good, but it just I can't call it. That wasn't great for me. It was just very
Hmm.
very very good. It was very satisfying, but now let's move on.
Okay.
What about what do or don't you like about modern Final Fantasy games?
Modern Final. Well, I mean, really, the last modern Final Fantasy game we got was 14, and that's an online MMO. I
Okay.
mean, the last one before that was
Well,
not
let's just to
uh,
revise that so we can save listeners a
okay.
lot of headache.
Sure.
Just the main numbered entries in the series: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Uh-huh.
9, 10, 12, 13. Not
Okay.
11, not excluding 11 and 14.
Okay. Uh, well, the last one, oh God, I didn't even play it because it didn't catch my fancy because it was the first time they went to, it was more of an action, RPG. Was it,
Yeah, 13.
God, what was it 13? Yeah, 13 with the, I didn't even play that one because I looked at it and I'm just like, yeah, I don't really like that. It's like they took the draw system from,
8.
8, thank you. And then they combined it with an action RPG system, and it was just like, yeah, no, I'm good. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think a lot of it had to do with, and I don't want to say maybe we weren't ready for that, but I don't think they did it well. It felt like they were trying to take turn-based and action-based and force them together instead of, saying, okay, let's, take the best parts of the turn and let's take the best parts of action, or let's go all action and then we'll rework our turn-based things and our spells and whatnot into the action, instead of trying to just say, okay, you know what I mean, and coming up with this mashup that was just like, yeah, no. And that was a lot of what I saw. I remember very little of it. All I remember was is that it was like they just took two halves, tried to shove them together and force something to work, and there wasn't a lot of thought behind it. And
Right.
I know that, and I have a good idea on why this is, or why this happened. It's going to kind of go into like the last couple of questions though, so I don't know if I want to bring it up now, but
Okay. Well,
I'll go
hold
ahead.
on to that thought
Okay,
then.
I'm gonna.
Um.
Yeah, I've got a whole thought on why it's happened the way it is, and I've got some
Oh, I do
supporting
too.
evidence for it. So
What evidence?
yeah, I know it's crazy, right?
Yeah, who would
Fred,
think that
Fred,
would be handy, huh?
Fred came prepared.
um, well, for me,
Hmm.
I mean, my tweets are kind of legendary at this point. All the bitching and complaining I do about Final Fantasy because it's
Hmm.
not what it was, and it's not because it's not the way it was when I was younger. It has
Hmm.
nothing to do with that. I'm all for innovation and
Okay,
evolution,
sure.
but when it comes to games, just like with music, like Metallica, they were great, and then they just laid a giant, you know, a
Who?
giant, yeah, brick of shit on their entire fan base.
Yeah.
20 years ago when Load and Reload came out, and
Hmm.
they went from a really good heavy metal band to like this shuffle and boogie like kind of rock band, and it wasn't even good shuffle and boogie rock. It was just crap. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it was they were trying to be like hipsters or something, and it was just a huge fail. But
Yeah.
and kind of Final Fantasy's done the same thing, and I feel like Square Enix has
Hmm.
taken, and I feel like they've purposefully taken the DNA out of the series
Uh-huh.
and replaced it with all this modern Western crap in an attempt to pander to people who really aren't going to play the game anyways, no matter what they do to it. I feel like if you're gonna gut something
Hmm.
and leave no trace or very little trace, like
Sure.
there's Neanderthal DNA in all of us, but
Hmm.
it's trace amounts, so you can't walk around and say, "Well, I'm Neanderthal."
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you're a Homo sapien. You know what I mean?
Right. 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 Right.
At some point you had a Neanderthal ancestor, you know,
Hmm.
but uh, it's the same thing with Final Fantasy. It's almost unrecognizable to me. Like the composer's gone.
Hmm.
Like the fanfare is gone. The
Hmm.
the main theme, the bubbling theme at the beginning of each the older games, that's
Hmm.
gone. Like, and I'm okay with a new composer coming in, but
Sure.
build off of what was there. Build off of what made that series great. And they didn't change it because the formula had gotten stale or sales had dropped. Had never been better when 10 came out.
Right.
Sales didn't start dropping until they changed the fucking formula. with 12 and that bullshit action combat system that was clunky. I played the demo that came with Dragon Quest VIII, and it was terrible. Like that was the first Final Fantasy game in my life that I did not buy and I did not want. And it was weird because I remember thinking, no, you gotta get it. It's Final Fantasy, and the smart part of my brain was saying, no, that's trash. Be a smart consumer.
Right.
Vote with your wallet, even if you're the only one, doing
Mm-hmm.
so. But so that's my biggest complaint with Final Fantasy post 10 is 10 took a little bit out and introduced some new elements that worked within that game, but those
Sure.
elements were expanded. The elements that were less than awesome, they left
Mm-hmm.
in and expanded upon those ideas, and they left all of the cool stuff and all of the stuff that most people loved about Final Fantasy and still love now. Uh, they took all that away, dude. They just got rid of it. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm a huge proponent of that.
Mm-hmm.
If something's working, obviously you want it to evolve. You want to change. You want to introduce new elements. And as a video game, as a business owner, obviously I understand that.
Right.
And as a gamer, I understand that. I mean, I don't want to play, even if it's even if I got a new Metroid game every day. Eventually,
Wow.
as much as I love Metroid or even Phantasy Star, if it was
Mm-hmm.
either of those, eventually I'm gonna tire of the same thing over and over and over and over. Even if you have new tunes and the graphics get better.
Destiny. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
Pardon me.
exactly.
Excuse me. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, hypocrite. We're gonna be on later.
I don't really.
You see this, man?
Catch us after the podcast.
Yeah, we'll be online streaming that later tonight for those of you listening to Fred's comments. But anyway, thanks a lot, Cred. I called you Cred. Sorry, you're ruining our credibility. Um, um, no, now I'm sidetracked. Now I want to talk about Destiny.
No. We can't do that right now.
No. And I won't give Bungie or Activision that luxury of free advertising, but no, I thought you might agree with me on that. I don't know that you do, or at least 100%. Like even when I see the promos for Final Fantasy 15, that demo we got, I fought an Iron Giant. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I love the Iron Giants. They're end of the game enemies. They're tough. They give good drops, high experience. You know what I mean? Fun to fight, all that stuff. But
Sure.
like the battle system was shit. From what I didn't dig it, man. And it's not. And I know a lot of people are gonna go, well, Scott, it's because you're old and you're used to playing turn-based Final Fantasy. Get with the times. But it's not. Dragon Quest is the best fucking example I can give of that. That
Okay.
series, the main series, not Builders and Heroes, the Heroes spin-off, but
Uh-huh.
the main Dragon Quest canon titles.
Mhm.
Those have not. I mean, this is a great example. They've never. That formula hasn't changed, but it's been tweaked. Instead of not seeing your party, fighting and just the monster vibrating or whatever, the screen flashing, it's
Right.
evolved. You still choose your turn-based commands. It's based on your stats, like a D&D, like old style D&D. You roll the
Sure.
dice, but the computer does it for you now, based on the work you put into your characters. But even going back to Dragon Quest VIII, you could see that. You know what I mean? Then they added the symphony to it instead of chip tunes. They added voice acting to it, which, I mean, Dragon Quest VIII is arguably one of the greatest RPGs. I won't say games. For me, it is, but for just strictly speaking of RPGs, it's one of the greatest RPGs like ever produced and that I've ever played. Like, it takes the original Dragon Quest formula, and they all do to a large extent. But eight was basically like the PS1 or the PS2, what the PS2 was to the PS1, where we turned it on and went, holy crap! Listen to the stereo sound. Holy crap! Look at the graphics. Oh my god!
Right.
My car in Forza looks like it's real. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the cell shaded games were just blew us away. I don't know. I know I played 13 Part 1 and 13 Part 2, and they were beautiful looking games, but the soundtrack was crap, the story was crap, the characters were shit. There was very little immersion. There was puzzles were non-existent. It was just it was like everything had been removed from 10, and everything that in 10 was removed.
Sure.
They took that blueprint and just built on the crap, made the pile of crap higher. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's from where I'm at with it today. I'm not a fan of anything post 10. I think
Okay.
I think 13, 1 and 2 are mediocre. I don't think
Hmm.
they're not trash. You know, I mean, I trash them because they're disappointing, but they're
Right.
not bad games. You could pick it up right now and you would enjoy playing it. But when
Right.
you finished, I know because you and I share the same opinions. I'm confident
Sure.
you would feel it would feel incomplete.
Okay.
Not like when you play any of the older ones, or
Right.
Dragon Quest, or any of those other long games, even like an adventure game like Zelda or something, where you have
Hmm.
this long quest and then there's this resolution. 13, 1 and 2 is just like that's it.
Hmm.
And they're not even very long games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What did you and I spent? You logged over 100 hours on Final Fantasy VII. I remember that because you were on my PlayStation doing it,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
logged.
Something like that.
I remember logging 88 hours and some odd minutes on my first playthrough, and
Yeah.
that was you and I weren't doing any chocobo breeding because we didn't have the internet and didn't
No.
know how to do it.
Yeah.
We were like,
No.
this is hard. We just
Yeah.
went through the game, but
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't even. And I mean, I didn't even get any. I didn't even get all the summons. I never made it to the Chocobo Island,
right.
the one that you could only get from getting the Black Chocobo. I didn't spend a lot of time at the saucer like you did. I think I spent. I think the only thing that I did at the saucer was I got Cloud's final limit break. I
Right.
spent the time and got that. And I spent the time and got Tifa. I think I spent the time and I got all the final limit breaks, at least for the 3 characters that I knew I wanted to use.
Right.
Other than that,
Now see,
I didn't really go and do a
see,
lot. Um,
you remember
mhm.
Cloud's final limit break. You remember the gold saucer. You remember all these details,
Mhm.
but you can't remember all the details about 10.
Well, it's because 10 I mean 10 I never really. I mean, let's look at 10. 10 I never really went and finished everything.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I played it, I found out what happened, but I never really went back and completed all the spheres. I never went back and did all the
Monster Arena.
did all the weapons. I never went back and did the calm lands and the
Right.
beast challenges that were in there. I played it, I got the story, I finished it, and I was kind of like, I felt like I didn't feel like I needed to go back and do
There was
anything.
no real incentive.
Yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And and I think the only thing I didn't do in 7 was beat Weapon X, the one that was underwater or whatever, because that
Oh.
was just
No,
like,
no, 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 no,
it's
no, no, no.
I don't think
We
it
both beat the
did
Emerald
we?
weapon, which is colloquial. It's the underwater weapon, but it's the real name is the
There was
Emerald.
another I know
No,
there
no,
was
no,
one.
no. The
No.
one that was a real pain in the ass was the ruby weapon, the one in the desert by the gold
Oh, is that
saucer.
what it was?
Yeah, remember the
It was
big red guy
yeah,
with 3 arms,
yeah.
which will probably be DLC in the remake, by the way. Well,
Oh god, I hope
they're
not.
optional part. They were optional parts of the first game, so you don't have to have them in the game if you don't want to
They
pay for them, right?
they they better not do
Those
that.
fucking scumbags. But
It's not a remake then. You can't
no.
call it a remake if you
Well,
don't add everything.
here's the thing, and another shout out to Colin over at Kind of Funny
Mhm,
Games for pointing this out because I
mhm.
was thinking the same thing.
What's
Um,
that?
when they were talking about Final Fantasy and kind of they're not as critical as we are of it, or not as down on as we are. They're a little disappointed in it, but
Mhm,
Colin said Colin said something that stuck with me over the last month. He said, if you're worried if you're worried about Final Fantasy 15, the quality and stuff, and the long development time, he says
uh-huh,
you better start worrying about the Fantasy 7 remake because it's
uh-huh.
the exact same fucking team.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah,
no, it's the exact game.
yeah. And
I don't know if
I
you've
saw
seen.
that
I don't know if
combat.
you've seen. Like there was a very brief demo of Cloud
Yes,
in the original,
yes,
train escape. Like they escape the factory and he's running on his own to get to the train or whatever, and the combat is kind of I hate to say similar, but it's almost like he's running through the city and then they kind of do that stop thing and then they do a small area of him fighting
Right.
like four
Well,
guys, and it's like
right.
a
He was
turn-based
dashing.
thing, and then it goes right back to him running. You know what I mean? And I don't think I think basically what they did is they developed the software to run Final Fantasy 15 and the world, and they however they develop it and everything, and then they said, okay, we've got a really good system, it's running really well, we can make these characters, we can do this, we can do that. All right, let's go ahead and port Final Fantasy VII into this engine, and and do that. And so yeah, it's going to be it's not going to be turn-based. So they
Well,
say
right.
remake, but it won't be. No, it's not going to be
It's
turn-based. I
no,
can
dude.
already tell you
Well,
now.
that's the thing too.
It's
It's
not.
just to touch on it
Hmm.
really quick. It's
Sure.
not. It's we keep using. You and I are both guilty of it. We're using the word remake. It's not a
Hmm.
remake. It's a total reimagining.
Okay. Yeah.
Total.
Let me. Yeah, and I'll just say the new Final Fantasy VII then.
Right.
And
Square
I,
Enix
right.
presents.
I only hope my only hope for Final Fantasy VII remake right now, and I know this is a question that's later on, but is I hope that you can switch off on the character that you're using. Meaning, I want to control Cloud this battle, and I can control Cloud. But let's say I want to switch to Tifa and use Tifa instead, and do some boxing on some characters and let Cloud be AI controlled.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to be able to do that on the fly,
Okay.
and hopefully that's something that
So
someone thought of.
okay.
Not because there wasn't really a main, like in 15, and I know this is going ahead, but in 15 there's one main character, you know what I mean, and for the life of me I cannot remember his name right now.
Noctis.
Noctis.
I'm embarrassed to know that.
um Noctis, so you play as him, so that makes sense. But in Final Fantasy VII, there wasn't really a main character. Yeah, everyone thought it was Cloud, but really, you could put whoever you wanted in your party, and everyone had their favorites of who they,
Right.
were imagining themselves being the leader of the the party. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people, myself included, it was Cloud, it was Tifa, and it was Barrett. You know what I mean? And those were your three main guys, and that's how you rolled the whole game. I know you used Sid and Red, Red
13. Yeah.
13
Nanaki.
with yeah, with Cloud. You know what I mean? And you did that route. Um, and I know when I got Vincent, guess what, Barrett, you got taken out,
Oh, of course.
and Vincent was there, but
Yes.
but that was the part where everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm Vincent now, you know what I mean,
Yep.
and I would love to be able to say, yeah, let me control that character, but I mean, I don't know, I don't think they're going to do it, because the formula they're following for 15, and I say this only because I played it at PAX, was your Noxus, and the other guys are kind of doing AI controlled. AI, I know I totally said his name wrong
You
again.
said Noxus.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
Sorry, internet. You can crucify me later, I guess. But
Yes.
uh, you're not controlling the other characters. You can kind of do combos a little bit. I didn't really figure out how to do that, but I know it's kind of like you can send commands or something, and if you're noticing they're doing something, and then you come over and do it, you can kind of do a little bit of a combo there.
Right.
But it's not something where, and I'll throw it back to Fantasy Star 4, where you could have your main guy do the Grand Cross, if you got it to work right. You know what I mean? Where you could do I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Grand Cross, and then he does Holy or whatever at the same
Yeah. No,
time.
it's
So,
Efes. I think it's Efes and Crosscut made Grand Cross.
yeah, Grand Cross,
Yes.
and I mean, there's nothing like that, at least that I saw in the little bit of demo that I played.
Right.
And I worry about the boss fights because I'm afraid they're going to be QTEs, and yeah.
Oh God,
So
that would be
we'll
terrible.
see. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
yet. I mean, the one I did, and it could have just been because it was an early build, and they didn't have the whole fight fleshed out yet, so they did that. But
Right.
I
Well,
don't know.
here's what I
We'll
think
see.
before we move on to the
Hmm.
next question. I think
Sure.
I think the ruby weapon
Mm-hmm.
the underwater or emerald weapon, the
Mm-hmm.
gold saucer, and
Mm-hmm.
Chocobo, the Chocobo breeding slash farm, are all
Mm-hmm.
going to be DLC components of the
I hope they
game.
announce that before they release the game, because if that's the case, I don't
No,
think I would. I
well,
would wait. I would wait for Game of the Year edition a year later, where they include everything with it and call it good.
see, but I'm not. After that initial like huge reaction we had online, just because it was
Hmm.
we didn't think it would ever happen, and I wasn't. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I wasn't. I did. I did not know that the Final Fantasy 13/15 team was the
Hmm.
were the same people heading up the 7 remake or reimagining, I should say. When I found that out, and when they
Hmm.
announced that it was episodic,
Hmm.
dude, all excitement, like it was instant. Excitement was replaced by frustration, like
Hmm.
anger, and just complete disappointment. Because
Right.
I don't want that team touching that game or any other game before 10, and I don't want a reimagining. I want an HD remake. Okay, maybe some new materia, maybe some new locations,
Right.
maybe new options, maybe more weapons or whatever to fight.
Uh,
But I wanted to look sweet. I wanted to have nice 3D graphics. A remastered soundtrack. So that it was sounded modern and full.
sure.
Nobody, and it was the one thing everybody said before they showed that the battle system was going to be like 15.
Hmm.
Everybody said, "Don't fuck with the battle system. Just improve it. Take what's
Hmm.
there, improve it." They wiped it out, dude. They replaced it so they can pander to a Western audience, and to people, and to people.
That is us. You
See,
know that, right?
see,
We
no,
are
no, 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 no.
audience.
But you and I, the average gamer, the average video gamer is
Uh-huh.
actually your age, 38, 39. So like, but like in this instance,
Hmm.
you and I are not in the demographic that they're targeting. I think
Right.
honestly, I think Square Enix wants people who maybe their parents or an older brother or an uncle played the original game, and they've heard all the you know the stuff that's
Hmm.
been spun about it, how great it is, the legendary game and this and that.
Sure.
But maybe have never seen it, or maybe not played it all the way through, or maybe went, "Oh my God, these graphics are terrible." What was this? The '80s, or the '90s?
Right.
You
Hmm.
know, those people are going to look at that and go, "Well, this is a modern game, and it looks like 15." You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and honestly, from what I've read and what I've heard,
Hmm.
I'm not expecting, I'm not predicting, but I am not expecting Final Fantasy 15 to be
Hmm.
anything but mediocre at best. At best,
Right.
I think it looks like a PS3 game that's been remastered and retouched like 5 or 6 times.
Hmm.
It shows like its age. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's got a facelift, but it's like it's starting to wear off. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so moving on, the next
Hmm.
question was we can skip. Let's skip the next one on the list there.
Okay.
We kind of touched on that already. Um,
Yeah.
okay, and so what, in your opinion, what returns the franchise to prominence or to greatness?
um. I mean, and I know you may not necessarily agree with what I'm about to say. So,
Okay.
don't. I, I think it comes down to understanding that the team that made 1 through, let's just say,
9.
9 is not there anymore. And I
Right.
know you
Yeah, they're all
mentioned it.
gone.
I know you mentioned it. The well, and let me put it to you this way. This is an article that came out actually yes today, for
Hmm.
lack of better. Final Fantasy 15 art director leaves after 24 years at Square Enix.
Oh.
Okay, his last day was yesterday, and
Wow.
so you've got people who have been with Square Enix for, in this case, 24 years, that are just not there anymore. You know what I mean? 24 years is a long time to work
Yeah.
with
Yeah. Of
one
course. Of
one
course.
one franchise, let
Right.
alone one company. We're talking one franchise here. This article states that he started on let's see, he started on whoa, hang on, which one was it? Final Fantasy VI in '94 is one of his first projects.
Oh wow.
um, uh, and he served as a field graphics designer.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it's just you've got people like that that have been there for so long, and you don't have those people anymore. Instead, what you have now are you have the people who played those games coming on and bringing their ideas to it.
See, and
And
and, and
and,
just
and
to
I don't. Uh-huh.
just to interject really quick, uh, and
Yeah.
that's where I have a problem with this with the modern series, is
Okay.
I'm okay with fresh minds and young minds, new perspective.
Sure.
That stuff's all good. That's good for business.
Hmm.
That's good for the consumer, but they don't respect anything that has come before. None of it. It's all trash, and it's deliberate. You can you if you go if you ever get the chance,
Hmm.
just play 13 Part 1. You can feel it the moment
No,
you pick it up. Yeah, oh, exactly. You can feel it though. I felt it the moment, the whole time I played through it. Even though I
hmm.
had a good time playing it, it wasn't very, it
Right.
wasn't great. It wasn't very good. Uh, you can that's like I said earlier, they've taken the DNA, the life out of the franchise, and replaced it
Hmm.
with these new ideas that aren't necessarily better. Change for the sake of change is stupid. You know,
Right.
I'm okay and I'm one of those people that says change isn't always good. Sometimes things should
Okay.
stay the same. Sometimes what came before was better than what comes after, and you know what I mean. It just is what it is.
Okay.
But go ahead, go ahead. I just wanted to interject with
Well,
that.
and I think that when they find the new, and I hate to say new, but when they find the formula that works, they want to update the series, and I get that, and I appreciate that. Like you're saying, it's good to try new innovation. It's good to try this.
Sure.
It's good to try that. But I don't think these guys have been doing this long enough necessarily to know. I mean, and I hate to say this, being a fan of Final Fantasy, but you know, I didn't necessarily play one. You know what I mean? I didn't even know what Final Fantasy really was, like most people, till seven.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And then everybody was like, "Oh, seven, seven, seven." You know what I mean? And I found the great world of RPGs. And then if I had to name my favorite one, it would probably be Tactics. And a lot of people are going to be like, "Really?" But you know, uh, but they haven't found what works. And
Right.
I think that 15, I think it's gonna have its own place. It's gonna have its own style. It's gonna lack in some places, and I hate to say that because the game hasn't even come out yet. But I think as far as the combat style goes, I think it's gonna lack in some places. I think people are gonna be like, well, where's my, well, thunder spell or lightning spell? Where's my, why can't I call in, you know, um, the Titan anytime I want? Why can't I only call it in this certain battle? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I
Right.
think that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to, yeah, you're going to get summons because you get one, and in the beta or whatever you want to call it, that I played at PAX, you do get one there. And you get what's the lightning guy, Ramonth or whatever. You get him, and that's how you beat the behemoth or whatever it is that you're fighting as a boss in this one area. But that's my concern, is that you're going to get them, and you're only going to be able to use them in the boss fight. I'm not going to be able to call it out and beat it on a regular field, and just feel like, hey, you know what, I want to decimate this whole group of enemies just because I want to.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you're not going to get that experience. It's not like in seven, where I was like, I'm up against some slimes, and like, what, I want to see the animation for
Leviathan.
Balmouth Zero real quick. Yeah, or
Yeah.
Leviathan. You know what I mean? I just want to
Yeah.
see it. You know what I mean? But you're not going to be able to do that, I don't think.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I think
Okay.
that's where it's going to lack. I
So
think the summoning system and some of the combat systems are going to be limited to certain times. You know what I mean? And it's going to make the story make more sense, because you know um you're not going to be this all powerful person in the game, where in seven, you were able to just call it whenever you wanted. As long as you had the magic points, you could do whatever you wanted. And I think that's where it's going to fail. Is it's going to be, they're going to limit what you can do and when you can do it.
Oh God, I hope not.
And
But what?
I don't
But
have proof of that yet, but
right.
just from the little bit that I've seen and the little bit that we've played, in the beta or in the demo that's on the website, what I played at PAX, what I've seen, I haven't actually seen any combat where you call in a magic spell like you used to, like fire or
Right,
ice
right.
or blizzard or
Ifrit,
any of that. I haven't
Shiva.
seen any. Yeah, I haven't seen any of that. And I know there's summons. I know you can call them, but I really think it's going to be something where it's a certain time,
Okay.
and you can only use them at a certain time, and then it's going to make sense in the story probably that you can only call them at this certain time, and it works out. But it's not going to feel like Final Fantasy in the fact that, well, why can't I just call it to beat up this one enemy? You know what I mean?
Right,
Here,
right.
randomly. Why can't I do that? You know what I mean? And that's where it's going to fail. And I hate to say
Well,
that,
what
but
do you? We got
because I'm kind of looking forward to it.
right. Well, we
Hmm.
got kind of
Got
sidetracked.
kind of sidetracked.
What do you think returns it to prominence, or what makes it great again?
People, people realizing that and the people that doing the games find the right formula. I mean, 1 through 4, I don't know what it looked like, you know what I mean? And I know they had the class system where you could change your jobs and everything like that, and have different job classes and stuff. And then they kind of turned that into, what it is now with the materia, in order to you could customize your class, so to speak, and do it however you wanted. I think when they find that formula again, they'll be great.
Okay.
And going back to their roots, this new group of people working on the game now, they find that formula of, okay, what made the other games so great? Well, they had all this stuff. It was turn based, and it was this, and they could do whatever they wanted. Well, we don't really want to make it turn based anymore, but the materia idea was really good. Well, why don't we drag that over? And then, people really liked, and I hate to say the sphere system, but it's the only thing that's coming to mind right now. They liked that idea of being able to customize your character. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's no customization. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's
Yes.
very,
Very
it's
strict.
very like, yeah, it's very, oh, well,
Very
this
constrained.
character, he can only do this. You know what I mean? And that's great for things like Tifa, where, okay, yeah, she can only use gauntlets, but she could still call in a summon. She could still be a healer. She could still do,
Right.
magic,
Yeah.
magic
They
if
could
you
all
wanted
handle
her
the
to.
jobs.
But
Right.
you right can't do that anymore. And I think it returns to prominence when they finally decide, hey, we need to go back to these original formulas and figure out how to make that work in the action that we want. Because I'm not against the action part. I think it gives a little bit
No.
more flavor to the game. It gives a little more, hey, it's not just me running up and going swipe and
Of
doing
course.
some damage and then running, and then jumping back. You know what I mean? Making an encounter different every time, if you will. And I appreciate that part, but I think they're getting away from what made games like, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy 9, 8, Final Fantasy 9, 10. Those great, was that there was a little bit of customization that's not there anymore. Or at least I
No.
don't see it. And who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong. And for my part in answering this question,
Hmm.
I agree with you like 99%. I think in order to facilitate
Hmm.
those ideas or those changes, I think that the people who make the decisions, okay, they greenlight a game and say, but it has to be this way, has to use these kinds of elements. I think those people need to go, because when SquareSoft and Enix merged to become Square Enix,
Hmm.
the management structure changed, and that's
Sure.
and it's not just Final Fantasy. Dragon Quest has had hiccups. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of the Square and Enix titles, of old or series of old, have had problems or struggled, sales wise, and even getting attention from guys that would normally love it, like us, in
Hmm.
recent years, in the last decade or so. So I think it's a lot like Nintendo. It's a management problem, because
Okay.
there's people at the top saying, yeah, we're gonna make another Final Fantasy game, but that's old school. We want action, or action's out now. We want this system, You know,
Mhm.
you know, and like I said, going back to with Dragon Quest, for somehow, some way, they've managed not to taint that formula or ruin it. They've just improved upon what was already there, and they do it successfully with each new entry into the main series. And
Sure.
another series that does that well, um, oh my god, I just forgot what it was. Fantasy Star did it, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that will disagree with me on Fantasy Star 3, but I thought that was a great game too. A little step backwards in some areas, but a big step forward in others. Um, but they have this thing over there at Square Enix or on the Final Fantasy team where
Mhm.
I've heard it on Twitter ad nauseum. They call it the
Mhm.
final. They say you have people like us that are dissatisfied with the recent titles. Oh, you have Final Fantasy disease, and I think that's
I'm sorry,
propaganda.
what?
They call it Final Fantasy disease, where
Final Fantasy
yeah,
disease.
that's what
Okay.
Square Enix calls it. They call it the developers internally call it that, and they call people with like us. They say we have Final Fantasy disease, and that essentially means well, Final Fantasy is supposed to be how you want it, not how it needs to be or how everyone else wants it. But that's just a bullshit excuse that's come out of that the headquarters of that office, because
Wow.
we all know what Final Fantasy started out as, what it became when it was still really healthy and selling well, and
Right.
what it's evolved into now. And my
Right.
question is this: how many fucking
Mhm.
times does Square Enix have to
Mhm.
create a mediocre Final Fantasy game or a bad one before they finally get the message that hey, this isn't working out? Maybe it's your team, maybe it's your management, maybe it's both.
Mhm.
Maybe the formula that you guys are so obstinate for just isn't working like you think it is or want it to. You know, they just there. I think there's some dishonesty there, where it's just kind of to
Mhm.
juxtapose with what you were saying. Where returning it to prominence, I think involves getting rid of these people who are obviously incapable of seeing what isn't working. I mean,
Sure.
it's been what Final Fantasy X was what 2001, so it's been almost 16 years since that
I think
game
so,
came
yeah.
out. I mean,
Something like that.
it hasn't worked in 16 years, but they keep cranking out crap after crap title after crap title, or mediocrity. You know what I mean? It's just like
Right.
Final Fantasy up till 10, and even at 10, but all the way from 1 through 10. It set the bar. It moved the bar up higher each time a game came out.
Sure.
8 wasn't as good as 7, and you know some people will argue 9 wasn't as good as 6 and whatever, but each one brought something bigger and newer and fresh to the table without while they maintained that experience. The Final
Yep.
Fantasy, it wasn't just a game, the Final Fantasy was an experience. You knew that you were getting something new. There would be new things
Mhm.
about it, but you knew what you were getting at its core. i'm going to spend I'm going to spend 40 to 100 hours in this fantasy world, and I'm going to explore. I'm going to see familiar monsters, new monsters. There's
Mhm.
going to be chocobos. There's going to be familiar music. You know, and now
Right.
the music was moody. Now I mean the music's just trash. The OSTs are garbage, and I mean it's like pop. I look at Final Fantasy, modern Final Fantasy,
Mhm.
like I look at top 40 pop music. It's
Top
gen-
40 pop
yeah,
music.
it's generic. It's one of the reasons I like rock and roll so much and metal. You know what I mean? Because it's unique. It has an edge. You know what I mean? It says
Right.
something. Those things all combined, or one of the or just even one of them sometimes. But
Mhm.
like Final Fantasy used to be the same way. It used to do something. It used to push the envelope. It used to make us go, "Wow, you know what? The last game was nowhere near this. This blows that out of the water. How could I ever think
Right.
that was so great?" You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It kept it moving. It grew. It pushed. Now it's just they're trying to appease this Mass Effect type gamer. You know what I mean?
Right.
The shooter gamer. And I'm not gonna knock Mass Effect. I haven't played it enough to say either way. I played a little bit, wasn't thrilled with it, but I won't say either way. I can't say either way that it was good or crap, because that's not fair.
Right.
That's disingenuous. But I
True.
yeah, I just it feel it, but Mass Effect, I got the impression it was an action game wearing an RPG mask, and I feel that's what Final Fantasy has become.
Hmm.
I mean, it's still definitely in the RPG family, no doubt about it. But it's
Right.
just like you said, the freedom of customization is gone now,
Right.
and then I see the freedom of exploration and discovery is gone. Um, so
Hmm.
the element of surprise is gone. The storytelling has gone way downhill. You know what I mean?
Right.
The characters from 13, except for Lightning, and all that's only because she was in games 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of the other characters' names, not a single one. And I mean,
I never. Gosh, I never played past.
you played
Oh
10.
God, Lightning.
Lightning was 13.
Yeah. No, I know. No, I played. God, I played. Oh God, I'm trying to remember what I played of that. I think I got to like the first. That was where you had to. Oh yeah, where they had the weird. They had the weird summons or whatever. That yeah, yeah. That's yeah. That was
Okay, so
was.
so oh, go ahead and finish your thought.
No, 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 no. There was no thought.
Okay,
I was
it's
remissing on a very bad experience.
oh. Okay, so to wrap that part up, and then we'll move on to the last question,
Mhm.
and that'll be a quick one.
Sure.
Um, you feel bringing back some of the older elements is what brings greatness back to the series. Am I understanding that
Absolutely.
correctly?
I mean,
Okay.
they need to. I mean, I understand that they're worried about this new generation of gamers who may not like that style of gameplay, but let me just really quick say this: you had Final Fantasy 1 through 6 that did that formula awesome, and no one knew about this series, and then 7 came out, and everybody was on board,
Yeah.
and I mean everybody.
Yep.
No
Even
one
non-RPG
cared that it was
players.
turn-based. You know what I mean?
Well, that
Everybody was
game.
like,
Well, that
hmm
game sold the PS1. Remember they had the X
yeah,
games and like
hmm
Tobal number one, and a couple
yeah,
other games, Loaded or whatever that was, in the really early days of the PS1.
right.
But it wasn't until
Twisted,
yeah
twisted metal.
yeah, it wasn't until Final Fantasy VII came out, and the PlayStation came with a demo disc. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
something came with a demo disc. I don't remember what it was. But people
Mm,
were just like, it's been so long. I'm having a hard time remembering exactly how that worked. But I remember that people were like,
yeah,
"Hey, what's this game?" People who had never played the first six Final Fantasy games, or even really were really into games, played it. Like I said, and that game took everything that was great about the first six games,
hmm
changed the art style, gave us a cyberpunk, steampunk thing, kind
hmm
of cyberpunk, and then stuck those elements into that setting and expanded upon every single good idea the first six games had, and did it better
right,
than the first six games.
right.
Now it's the opposite. They take everything that we
Well,
loved and piss on it, throw it in the trash can, put
eh,
bricks on top of the lid, and give us this new stuff.
and again, that's because there's a new team working on this, and
Right.
they haven't figured it out yet.
Okay.
And you've got the same thing. You've got the first 6 games where, they no one knows about them, no one really wants to deal with them, and then you'll get to, and hopefully it's not the seventh game it takes to get to it, but you get to the seventh game, and they'll finally stumble on the winning combination.
Right.
But let's keep it moving so that way we're not
Okay. Okay, so I'm sure that topic will come up again at some point in another podcast. Just real
yeah.
quick, because I've got to wrap this up too.
Mhm.
We can make
Sure.
this a one or two sentence answer. Are you excited for the
hmm
Final Fantasy VII remake? Why or why not? I'll
Not
let you.
yet.
Okay, and
I need to I
why
need to
not?
see more, and I need to see more, and I'm not sure about the episodic stuff.
Okay.
I don't want to be nickel and dimed because they decided to make a remake of everybody's favorite game.
Okay. And my answer to that is fuck that garbage. So I was so excited for it, and I
Hmm.
like I said, I didn't know. Had I known that the Final Fantasy 13 and 15 team were the people responsible for this
Mhm.
remake,
Sure.
I would have probably been very vocal and outspoken against it from day one on Twitter, and I probably would have borderline harassed Square Enix America, with my tweets and stuff. But no, that's
Sure.
just, I mean, we could talk about this all night, but no, I'm not. I was very excited. Obviously, you can go back and watch our reaction on our channel, but that's
Right.
not
Oh
the
yeah.
case, not the case anymore. I'm actually very angry. I don't want it to come out. I want to see the project shut down so that maybe in another 10 or 20 years somebody else with more competency and less desire to pander can just say, hey, you know what, this game was fantastic from 40 years ago. Let's give it a facelift. Let's add some tweaks. Let's
Hmm.
tweak it a little bit so that it still delivers the same experience, but but it's a better experience at the same time.
Sure.
So, okay, and that will do it for episode 2 of the Those Two Gaming Guys podcast. Next week, we haven't actually decided what our topic's going to be. So I have some ideas, but Fred and I will talk about that.